Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
We also learned that President-elect Donald Trump has backed the latest House Republican package to avoid a U.S. government shutdown. He said this in a post on Truth Social. Here's what he wrote, quote, "All Republicans, even the Democrats, should do what is best for our country and vote yes on this bill tonight."
Yeah. I mean, I kind of want to see what's in the bill, like the devil's in the details, as we like to say. All right. So we're looking for more information on that.
Let's see what Margaret Talev has to say about this. She's director of the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship at Syracuse University. She's also former senior White House correspondent for Bloomberg News. Margaret joins us from Washington. Margaret, I know that you guys have this big report out about Elon Musk's influence. We're going to talk about that in just a minute because you can't talk about funding and the debt limit without talking about Elon Musk, especially what he's done in recent days. But what's your view on the way that the president-elect has driven the conversation about this weeks before he even takes office?
Yeah, well, first of all, it is great to be back with you guys. Carol and Tim, thank you for having me back on such a crazy, busy day with the three-ring circus. It's funny because it really doesn't matter on some level who the president is and who's in control of Congress. You can almost always count on a cliffhanger and chaos, like, the week before everyone's supposed to break for the holidays. This has been no exception, but it's been very interesting to see President-elect Trump walk his own speaker, Mike Johnson, right to the edge of sort of, let's say extreme instability and risk of getting tossed over the edge by his own party, and then blow up the carefully negotiated earlier deal and demand he get sort of a long runway on the debt ceiling, maybe abolish it, or maybe just give him a couple years running room into the, at least through the first midterms of his presidency, and that's what he wants. You've got several Republicans who don't want that because they're fiscal conservatives, and you have Democrats who don't want it because they think it would just hugely empower Trump with no accountability and that they would end up regretting doing it. So a lot of drama thrust into, the last 48 hours or so. And to your point, Elon Musk has been at the center of it. I think months ago, back in the quaint days of the summer when J.D. Vance was rolled out as Trump's running mate, everyone thought, well, if he becomes the vice president-elect, we'll really see a Trump and J.D. Vance partnership. But it's really been a Trump and Elon Musk partnership with J.D. Vance kind of running up to the hill from time to time. But it has been Musk with the soapbox and the leverage and the ammunition.
Margaret, I always think about this. Congress works for you, me, Tim, like the American people. And so are we getting something here that's good for the American public?
These end-of-year negotiations to avert a government shutdown are, by their very nature, no matter how many elements get sussed out, there are always elements that slip under the rug or between page 1000 and 1010.
Right.
So it's this is nothing new, but it's not one of the most sunlit filled rooms in government is all the stuff that gets crammed into a bill. People vote in it. They haven't read it yet. It creates a lot of consternation for members of Congress, too. And then once it passes, it's passed. But these budget stopgaps, they really don't resolve things for 2 years at a time. Typically, they resolve things for a few months at a time. And that you've seen part of that is what the former and President-elect Trump wants to avoid is he doesn't want to have to keep dealing with these battles in the early months of his presidency while he's trying to do other things. But the partisan lines are so close and there are so many fractures within the Republican caucus itself that it's very hard to get lasting long-term agreements. And it's very hard to get transparency in the final hours when they're trying to jam through a compromise.
You mentioned Elon Musk, so that's where I want to go now, because according to the New York Times, Musk has made more than 150 posts just in a short period of time agitating for a government shutdown. That happened yesterday, is when he was making those posts. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars helping to elect Donald Trump. This morning, Rand Paul, Republican senator of Kentucky, tweeted that perhaps Elon Musk should be Speaker of the House. No question, Elon is influential in Washington these days, but I do wonder how influential he is, Margaret. And you tried to actually quantify that at the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship at Syracuse University. How do you measure it?
We've had this really cool year-long project. In fact, the last time I was on with you, we talked about it a little bit, called the Election Graph Project. We were very lucky to receive a research grant from a company called Neo4j that develops graph technology that's basically a technical way of saying their software lets you see both hidden connections between seemingly disconnected people and also commonalities in text and video. And we use their technology, and my colleague Jenny Stromer-Galley built a research team at our Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship to try to look for misinformation and basically patterns in the spread of information around ads on Meta platforms related to the presidential campaign. And then I know it sounds super specific, but you have to draw some boundaries around it. Just looking at ads on Meta, we found more than 6 billion with a B ad impressions from the campaigns, just the Harris and Biden and Trump campaigns. Then another 5 billion impressions from outside groups. And among these outside groups that we looked at, we tried to understand these dark money groups that got money from Elon Musk, but either had no accountability or really no accountability till after the election. How impactful were they? We found that there were more than $6 million spent in negative ads just from those groups that were backed by Musk, that were doing a lot of the work to undercut Kamala Harris in those closing days. $6 million doesn't buy you a whole lot on linear TV. $6 million buys you a lot on social media platforms in terms of ad impressions, which are basically just views. How many times did people see an image or see the text of these ads coming through on their screens?
In that period of time, Elon Musk has bought, he owned it, over the last year, but he bought X a couple years ago, but he's transformed it over the last year into something that's completely different, I think many people would say, than it was before. Certainly, it's his preferred method of communication. How do you measure his influence just using that social platform?
Right. I mean, it's a fantastic question. Again, this election graph project with the IDJC and Neo4j looked at meta platforms, and part of the reason why is because the regulatory structure does not compel all the social media platforms to give researchers access to this information. So it's really hard to attach metrics to everything that he's doing, but we can all see this. It's been sort of a user and ideological shift, but also a gatekeeper and a guardrail shift in terms of what kind of messaging is spread on formerly Twitter, now X, and who likes to use it. And I think we've seen a lot of movement from some users and some
Margaret, one last question just quickly. So shame on social media velocity, shame on social media companies, shame on all of us who read so much social media and kind of create that velocity, or shame on just the money in politics to the extreme level that it has become? And just quickly. Money undoubtedly has an impact in politics, but it's also voter beware and consumer beware. There are a lot of efforts to manipulate you, whether it's to take advantage of you financially, to misinform you, to bend your vote, to confuse you, or just to prod you in a certain direction. You have to understand when you're consuming information, right,
it does influence the way you think about issues.
Eyes wide open. Margaret Talev, so nice to be checking in with you. Have a great holiday and Happy New Year. Director of the Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship at Syracuse University, former senior White House correspondent for our team here at Bloomberg News. So great to reconnect. Joining us from Washington, D.C.